it's Jess from the Career Center. Thanks for joining us for this episode of our Courageous Career Conversations. With us today is Maricela Becerra-Garcia, who is an assistant professor here at CI for the Spanish department. So the first question is, when did you first discover that you wanted to work in the field of higher ed / academia? And what were the factors that led to you making that decision?
I have a very cheesy story, and I swear it's all true, as cheesy as it sounds, but I started my master's program in Spanish literature, and that came after I quit law school because I didn't like law school. I didn't like where it was going for me. So I quit law school, started my master's right away, and I was in class discussing books, and I loved it. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to talk about books forever. And that's when I started teaching as well as a TA back in my master's program. And I just fell in love with it. And I saw myself doing that for a long time. So that's when I decided to kind of shift towards academia.
Were there any like determining factors that led to you making that decision? Or was it like a pretty straightforward decision for you?
Pretty straightforward. So I started my master's at a CSU, Gold Beach. And then I asked my professors, how do you get there? And they said, well, you have to get a PhD. I'm like, what is a PhD? Let me Google it, right? And I basically Googled what a PhD was, and I applied to PhD programs right after my master's, and I got into a bunch of them. And I chose the best one for me, right? And that's pretty much how it went. Not like I didn't take a break after my master's. It kind of just went straight. So I did like 7 years of grad school back to back. And then I did a postdoc.
You mentioned law school and then going into your master's. So what was that transition like, or what caused the transition?
It was so weird because, so I'm an immigrant and I was undocumented for a big part of my life. Half of my undergrad was me as an undocumented student. And I kind of felt like it was my responsibility to become a lawyer because of my journey, not because it was something that I liked, just because I felt like I had to. So it was kind of like that sense of, well, I have to help my community, right? And I thought that was the only way to help my community. So I went into law school. It took me 2 years to get a nice LSAT score because that exam is so difficult. And I did they had like a summer school program, and I did summer school, and I started my fall semester. And one, it was very expensive. I didn't have any financial aid. And like signing for those like massive loans was like my heart was in pain signing, those loans. And it wasn't something that I enjoyed. It wasn't what I thought it would be. I think it was disappointing for me personally. So I decided that I wasn't going to spend my time and all that money doing something that I didn't like.
Yeah, that is a really big point. I think a lot of students that I've talked to who come from like marginalized populations, they do have that really overwhelming like sense of responsibility to give back to the community. And it's like, I'm one of the few that made it, and now I have to make the most out of this degree, not just for myself, but like for everyone who comes after me. For me, it was becoming a doctor, and it's like, I'm not going to become a doctor, but a story for another time.
But right, I think, also in our families, I mean, I'm talking about the Latino culture / family, right? But I think the only career options that I had in my mind was doctor, lawyer, and I think that's it. Like, I don't think I saw anything else besides that growing up.
Yeah, no, it's very selective, and it makes you think of the world in like very, like there's only so much that you can do out there, when it's like the complete opposite. Like there are people who are out there making cartoons for medical books, and it's like that. I never would have thought of that as a job. So there's a lot out there, more than our families like are aware of. The next question is, throughout your journey, were there any barriers that you encountered or that you are still encountering as you're like in your journey as an assistant professor, or maybe that you've heard colleagues talk about?
I mean, I can start from the very beginning because when I applied to college, I was undocumented, like I mentioned. And back then we didn't have DACA, we didn't have the support that we have now for undocumented students. So I didn't have any options really. I had to find something close to home because I couldn't move out, something that we could afford out of pocket because I didn't get financial aid. I wasn't, I didn't qualify for financial aid. Um, and I had to decline my enrollment to my first choice. And it was hard. It was painful because all of my classmates were like, "Oh my God, I got into my first choice," and I got into my first choice too, but I just couldn't go, right? So I ended up going to the school that was the cheapest for my family. So it wasn't my first choice, but then it became like the perfect choice for me, I think, throughout my journey. So that was one. I don't think back then we had the support that we have now for undocumented students. And then I got pregnant my last year of my undergrad. So that was interesting. I was that student walking around campus with my big belly, trying to finish my degree before the baby came out. And I don't back then I didn't dare to ask for support as a pregnant student. And once I became pregnant again during my PhD, I was like, oh my God, I never asked for any support as a pregnant student because I didn't think I should get support as a pregnant student. I didn't think it was common, even though it is more common than what we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just pushed through it and finished my degree that way. But those two things were, I wouldn't say obstacles, just lack of support, right? That would have made my journey easier in a way. Um, now I would say those two, and becoming an assistant professor, well, getting a job is hard in the academic field. It's not, how do you say it? It's not a field that has many positions open at once. It took me 2 years and I applied to over 70 positions. So, and a lot of them, most of them rejected me. So yeah, that was hard. I don't think I was aware of the market, the job market before I went into my PhD. Because again, I didn't even know what a PhD was. I just went with it, así como, well, we're gonna do it, whatever happens, happens. But if I had known how the job market was before I went into my PhD, I probably would have think about it a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it worked out.
I'm glad it did. I heard you teach some very interesting classes here. I remember sitting in on a meeting and you were talking about, I think it was like Netflix. And I was like, can I like audit this class? It sounds really fun.
Yes, I taught a class on the Mexican production by Netflix for the past few years. It was super, super awesome. I love that class.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about your classes. So it seems like your career path was perfect for you. The next question is we just did that one. What tips do you have for students or alumni that have to overcome like similar situations, similar barriers? And if there are any resources that you used or that you are aware of that are available now for students?
Mhm. I think my first tip will be to not be afraid to change your mind because I did it a bunch of times. And when I was in high school, I was told that you went to college for 4 years and they told you 4 years, right? That's the path. And then you're done and you get a job and then you're gonna be this amazing professional. But things change, right? The world changes every single day. And that might not be the reality for many people, depending on what you want to do or not. So it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to take your time and do it at your own time and your own pace.
Mhm.
I always follow the quote by this mariachi singer from Mexico that said, it's not important to be the first to get to that place. You just have to get to that place where you want to be.
Mhm.
So as long as you get to where you want to be, it doesn't matter if you change your major, minor a bunch of times, if you like took time off, just do what feels right for you at the right time. What was the second part of the question?
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It was if you have tips and any resources that helped you.
Mhm. Any resources? I think just to be more aware of what's available on campus when it comes to resources, because I know that I didn't know everything my campus had to offer as an undergrad. And when I became a professor and like like I sit in meetings and they're like, oh, we have this program and this,
Mhm.
I'm like, what? I wanted to have that program. Maybe I did have it and I didn't know that I had it. So just be aware of what you have on campus already and reach out to anyone, right? I think as a professor, I'm always happy to talk to my students and recommend them, different people to talk to, places, organizations, sources, etc. And then now, I think, especially at our campus, it feels like we're all a community, right? And we're all there to help each other. So it's okay to ask for help and those resources when you need them.
I have one question. Since you had changed your mind about law school and then going into higher ed, did your family have feedback when you made your decision? I know that's another big thing a lot of students have to deal with when they're like, oh, I want to go into art and I don't want to be a doctor anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the first feedback I will say that I got was when I finished my bachelor's and I didn't become a lawyer right away.
Mhm.
Because in my family's mind, you go to college, you graduate, and then you become whatever you want to be, right? And it doesn't work that way here in the States. So having to explain the whole process of applying to law school and getting into law school and all of that stuff. My mom, my mom was very supportive, but she did mention something like, well, you're gonna be a broke student for longer. I said, it's okay. It's okay. I'm fine with it. And my middle sister is also a PhD graduate. So we did like grad school together kind of. And my mom was just like, I have my two daughters are both grad students, they're both broke students. One day they'll get a job and they won't be students anymore. So I think she accepted it. I did grad school with my kid. He was 2 when I started my program, and my husband, no, he was 4 when I started my PhD program, actually, 2 when I started my master's. And my son, the only thing that he said is, I don't want to go to any more of your graduations. When are you gonna be done? Because he had been there for all my graduations, right? My husband is very supportive, but sometimes I'm like, what if I just quit my job and then we'll go in like in the middle of nowhere to read books for like a year? And then he's like, that's fine, let's do it. So
I
that's the
think
type
about
of
that at
feedback,
least once a week. Yes.
right? It sounds great. But I think, I mean, I really love what I do. I enjoy it. I enjoy teaching about books and film and TV. I love my students. And that's the part that I think feeds me, right? Like feeds my
Mhm.
passion in what I do. Talking to my students, getting to meet them. We have amazing students that just blow my mind every single day, with everything that they're doing and their families. I love graduations and seeing their families so proud of them and cheering
Mhm.
them on. Like that's my favorite thing. And I also love buying school supplies. So for me, becoming a professor was a perfect excuse to do all those things that I liked. And talking about family again, I think when your family sees that you're doing something that you enjoy, they'll get it, right? They
Mhm.
get it.
Yeah.
And my mom is she was a janitor for a long time. Now she's a handy woman, so she fixes things.
Mm.
And my stepdad is a landscaper, so I come from like a working class background, right? And I know they're very proud of everything that I do. So
Mhm. That's good. That's very sweet. And it's good to have family members that are like that. I know for my family, they were pretty accepting. I feel like because they weren't as aware about like what the process was or
yeah,
what there was to do outside of being a doctor. But I think, yeah, one of the big things is like your parent is afraid that like you are going to go through like the same thing that they had to go through. And it's like, no, like I can make money and like this other field, like I'm going to be okay. And on top of that, like I enjoy what I'm doing. So I won't be
yes.
like miserable even if I'm getting like hundreds of dollars. Yeah, so I think that's a really big thing. One other thing I noticed is I interviewed Ernesto, and one thing I noticed from hearing both of you speak is kind of knowing yourself and knowing what you like. And it seems like both of you were aware of like who you were, what you liked, and what you looked forward to. And you found a way to make that into like your whole career, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it worked. I like talking and I have to talk every time I teach. So that helps. I like reading and I have to read for class. So that helps. Yeah, I really like it. I always say that, if I get to the point where it's not enjoyable anymore, then I'll just do something else. But for now, I really love it. And I never saw myself as an academic or professor educator, never in my life growing
Mhm.
up. Like it kind of just happened. And then I remember one of my good friends went to see me teach one time, and he just said, "I will never picture you as a professor." I'm like, I know, right? Look at me now.
I think a
Because I
big
could have never
portion,
imagined that.
yeah, no, a big portion of it is doing your research, and it's hard to know where to even begin. But I feel like we're so, I don't know, it's like going back to your parents thinking that there's only like two trajectories for you, and there's so much out there, and like those fields entail so many different roles and so many things that you can do within them. It's just
Yeah.
starting that research, starting somewhere and looking for what's out there.
And I've had students that are way older than my parents, right?
Mhm.
And they went back to school because they realized, hey, I'm gonna try this thing now. And it works for them. Like I said, take your time and make your own journey in your timeline. There's no such thing as a normal or traditional path, I think.
Mhm. I agree. So that those are all the questions that I had. Do you have any final words of advice, anything motivational, anything?
Motivational. Don't give up.
Yes. Échale
um,
ganas.
Échale ganas, sí se puede. I think talking about families again, a lot of times when our students express like lack of support from their families, and I think it's something that we hear often, right?
Mhm.
In our campus. And a lot of times that lack of support comes from not knowing what they're doing, right? Because they just don't understand what they're doing. So I will say that um, to reach out to professors and ask us to talk to your parents. I would love to talk to your abuelita and your mom and your dad and tell them what you're doing, right? And how proud
Mhm.
we are of you, so they can see the impact that you're making at our university. Because a lot of times that's all it is. It's not that they don't support you, it's just that they don't know what's going on with you.
Mhm. Or they don't know how to support you either is another big
Yes.
thing I've heard. Ah, it's a complicated world out there.
But yeah, you're totally right. They don't know how to support you. You're totally
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And don't
it's
be
hard.
afraid to tell them how to support you though,
Yeah.
right?
And then sometimes you don't know how you like need to be supported. It's complicated, but people are here to help.
Exactly. I was gonna say, go see Jessica and she can
Yes.
help you out.
Go see Marisela. Enroll in one of her classes, please. Let me know how it goes. Okay, so that concludes this episode of the series. Thank you for joining us, and be on the lookout for the next episode and our next brilliant guest speaker.
Thank you.